Welcome to the Layman Seminary. We're continuing a series on debate preparation for my upcoming debate with Travis Thomas on think February 4th. And so we're going through Fred Che's book on saving faith, and we dealt with all the lexical stuff. In other words, the word studies in the previous videos. And now we're getting into syntactical issues. In other words, how the verb is used with prepositions and things like that. But as we're beginning this, we need to keep in mind that a text without a context is a pretext. So what's more important than a word study is how these words are functioning in the sentence or in the paragraph or whatever context we're talking about. So here's a reminder of the process. Now, I'm not going to just reiterate it, but you go from classical to Septuagint to Koine, Papyri to New Testament usage. So this section that we're in right now, this is dealing with New Testament usage. And so pistu plus ace, the preposition, of course, pistuo is the word for belief, occurs over 30 times in John and refers to genuine saving faith. Okay, that's the assertion of Che. This is in Logos. First time I ever used this, they have a preposition use thing. And so you can see that the word in is inside and the ace is going into. So I've seen these a lot of times with in different grammars we use, but it's just kind of interesting that they made one. So zooming in, we're focusing on ace. So when I click on this, it's going to bring up certain verses, but it only brought up 2 verses. And I'm like, wait a minute, something's wrong. And I don't know if it was because I didn't index at the time or what, but so I did some other things to get different results. One thing I did was I typed in lemma plus G, which for Greek, pistuo, and ace. And that brought up where the word occurred, or you could put with ace. The problem with that, though, is that even though I got 180 results and 78 verses, I got some where the word ace is far away. So there's a way to narrow it down, like within a few space words or something like that. But I have to look back and see. But that's all right. I got numbers for y'all. Another thing that I did was in Logos, I found out that you need to insert this in your exegetical guide, grammatical relationships. And so then I was able to go here to preposition, ace, the preposition with pistuo, and that brought up 46 results. And so that sounded more accurate. Okay. Now, what Fred Che argues is that how the word belief, is talking about salvific faith. In other words, it's referring to pistuo ace. Whenever that construction is being used, it's referring to genuine saving faith. And so a question is on 1242, John 12:42. And we'll come back to that. So here's pistuo ace. This is the salvific side, and this is the non-salvific side. And so there's that 1242, if you want to counter it that way. And so here's several different passages. You can just look at the screen. You can see I got tired of writing John or JN, so I just wrote J's. So a lot of these usages are in John. And then, then you get into Acts, Romans, 1 John 5. So that was pistuo ace. But you also got pistuo plus in, pistuo plus hadi, and pistuo plus epi. So back to Botha, which we talked about in previous videos. The meaning of pistuo in the Greek New Testament, a semantic lexicography study. He says this: what is also significant is a typical misconception that a certain construction in Greek bears a certain meaning. The fact that pistuo ace is used often in John is meaningful only in that it reflects his personal style and preference. There's no real difference between pistuo ace and other constructions where pistuo can also occur. It is only conventional language and nothing more. Okay, so Che's bringing this up to before we go into discussing these variations. He wants us to know about this from Botha. All right, so John 3:15. What's interesting about this is John 3:15 says, "Whosoever believes will in him have eternal life." In Greek, it's pistuo in. The reason this is significant because in 16 it's pistuo ace. So this shows that they're both used in salvation way and possibly even interchangeably. Because if you say pisteuo in is not for salvation, then this statement that clarifies 15 would not be for salvation too, which most people, I would say all people, disagree with. All right, so here's the Greek pisteuon and hapisteuon eis. So participles in both places. Okay, he gave some other resources, but I wasn't able to find them. One from Gentry, the Great Option, and then another one was a guy named Chantry. Not Gentry, it doesn't rhyme with Gentry. Chantry, and that one was available in paperback. But one resource that I did have that kind of makes this arguments is in Geisler's Systematic Theology, and I like Geisler, but he makes this statement that there's two kinds of faith: nominal, non-saving belief, and effectual saving belief. The former is mere belief that something is so, and the latter is belief in it. So he's trying to make a distinction here between belief that and belief in. But I don't think that distinction sticks. True faith is not simply belief that, but also belief in. That's his assertion. All right, so moving on to pisteuo in, salvific, these passages, non-salvific, 1 Thessalonians 1:7. Pisteuo plus hadi, these are all salvific, and here's the non. So you can see that they're balanced, split between two, and it even takes 2 slides to talk about all the references, or to list them. Pisteuo plus epi, these are salvific and these are non. Same thing with here. Did I copy? No, that's 2 different slides. All right. Okay. So here's the point. Only one verse in each chart for pisteuo plus in and pisteuo plus epi seem to be non-salvific. But when you get to hadi, it's balanced. But all but one of has salvation uses are in John's writings. Okay. So pisteuo plus a/in convey the same basic meaning. We saw that from John 3:15 and 16. So we're going into Wallace's Greek Grammar Beyond the Basics here. He says this. He says, for example, pisteuon plus in is the equivalent of pisteuo plus eis. The idea is put one's faith into, even though in is used. What is the value of the discussion for exegesis? It is simply that too often prepositions are analyzed simplistically, etymologically, and without due consideration for the verb to which they're connected. Prepositions are often treated in isolation, as though their ontological meaning were still completely intact. So this is the basic usage with the accusative for in, and you see that it says in the place of, for eis, in the place of in with various nuances. Then in discussion of in, it's called the workhorse preposition because it has so many different ways that it could be taken. And in particular, as to confirm what we just said, it's also used as an equivalent for eis with a verb of motion. So Chase says this, that it's important to determine if pisteuo indicates salvific belief rather than pursuing blanket categories. So that needs to be examined. Is the passage talking about salvation? And so on. One of the resources he quoted was John Schnackenberg, who had a commentary on John. Here's the volume number and stuff. Says that in many texts, pisteuo plus eis is on the same footing as pisteuo plus hadi, and often the absolute infinitive form means that the uniting faith is in the fullest sense. So it's basically saying that pisteuo eis and pisteuo hadi have the same meaning. Christian Richardson was another one I found where it says eis is an abbreviation for hadi, because hadi is explicit, where eis isn't. And so Leon Morris, who's not Free Grace, says this in this commentary. The conclusion to which we come is that while each of the various constructions employed has its own proper sense, they must not be too sharply separated from one another. Basic is the idea of the activity of believing, which takes the believer out of himself and makes him one with Christ. But really to believe the Father, or really to believe the facts about Christ, inevitably involves this activity. So it's kind of interesting. He even used this word, the facts about Christ. You got some people that object to such language. I say supernatural facts. Whichever way the terminology employed, it stresses the attitude of trustful reliance on God that is basic for the Christian. Okay, so what we're doing is we're looking at the semantic range, which we did in previous videos. Then we're looking at contextual indicators, right? And wow, this video was short too. They seem longer because I have to study a lot to make them. But basically, he's saying, well, semantic range is important, how the word is being used, whether it's classical Septuagint, papyri, or New Testament. But context and its indicators are really most important. In other words, we got to focus in on the Bible study methods of observation rather than giving allegiance to a particular theological position. And so, yeah, this video is going to be short. So if you were blessed by it, subscribe. If you haven't already, hit the bell to get notification. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know you like the content and for algorithm purposes. Share it with others if you think they'll be benefited by it. And keep this ministry in prayer most of all. And if you feel blessed and you want to donate, then you can, underneath my about section, you'll find a PayPal, or underneath most videos, you will find a PayPal link. God bless.